Today, we're tackling a really critical question. When does a protest cross the line and legally become a crime? It's a fine line, for sure, and it's governed by laws all designed to protect something called public tranquility. We're going to break down exactly what makes an assembly unlawful, what turns it into a riot, and what it takes for a gathering to cross that legal threshold. Let's get right into it.
And that really is the central question, isn't it? It's not just about how many people show up or how loud they are. The law actually sees public disorder as a kind of ladder of offenses, and it all starts with what a group intends to do. To understand how a group climbs that ladder, we first have to understand the basic idea these laws are trying to protect.
And that core idea is public tranquility. You can pretty much think of it as the baseline for a peaceful, functioning society. Every single law we're about to talk about is built to stop this order from being disrupted. It really is the foundation for everything else.
Okay, so let's start with the first rung on that ladder. A gathering of people isn't illegal just because it's big or, noisy. It becomes legally unlawful based on two very specific things: the number of people involved and, way more importantly, their shared goal.
The magic number, legally speaking, is 5. For a gathering to even be looked at under these laws, there have to be 5 or more people. If there are fewer than 5, well, that's a whole different legal ballgame.
But just having 5 people isn't enough. The absolutely crucial element is that those 5 or more people have to share what the law calls a common object, basically a collective illegal purpose. It's this shared intent that flips the switch, turning a regular gathering into an unlawful assembly. And the law gets super specific about what counts as an illegal common object. There are 5 main categories. First up, to overawe the government, which really means using criminal force to intimidate them. Second, to resist the law being carried out. Third, to commit a crime, like trespassing. Fourth, to forcibly take someone's property or deny them their rights. And fifth, to illegally force someone to do something they don't have to do. If a group of 5 or more shares just one of these goals, they are now, by definition, an unlawful assembly.
And look, the consequences are serious right from the get-go. Just being an intentional member of an unlawful assembly, even if you don't do anything violent yourself, can land you in prison for up to 6 months. That just goes to show how seriously the law treats even the potential for public disorder. So, what happens when an unlawful assembly decides to take that next step? This is where we climb higher on the ladder, moving from just a potential threat to an actual physical disturbance. This is how an assembly escalates into the much more serious offense of rioting. The formula for this is actually pretty simple. You take an unlawful assembly, which we just figured out, and then you add one key ingredient: the use of force or violence by any member of that group, all working towards their shared illegal goal.
And that brings us to the formal legal definition of rioting. The second that force is used, every single person in that assembly is considered guilty of rioting. It doesn't matter if they personally threw a punch or not. This idea of shared guilt is a huge pillar of this law.
And as you can probably guess, the punishment really ramps up with the threat level. Basic rioting could get you 2 years in prison, but if a deadly weapon gets involved, that sentence more than doubles to a potential 5 years. The law is very clear about scaling the penalty to the potential for harm. Okay, so not every public disturbance involves a big, organized group, right? The law also has rules for smaller-scale conflicts, and interestingly, for the act of just deliberately trying to stir up trouble.
I mean, think about it. This is a pretty common scenario. It doesn't meet that 5-person minimum for an unlawful assembly, but it's still definitely disturbing the public peace. So, does the law have a special name for this? Yup, it sure does. It's called an affray. The key ingredients are really simple. You need 2 or more people. They have to be fighting. It has to be in a public place. And that fight has to disturb the peace. It's a totally separate offense designed to handle these smaller, more spontaneous public fights.
Now, this is really interesting. This is how the law deals with incitement. If you deliberately try to provoke people into starting a riot, your punishment actually depends on what happens next. On the left, if a riot does break out, you could face up to a year in prison. But on the right, if your attempt fails and no riot happens, it's a lesser penalty of 6 months. Your legal trouble is tied directly to the outcome.
All right, so up to now, we've mostly been talking about physical acts, but the law is very clear that words can be just as disruptive to public tranquility. They can create deep divisions and really threaten the harmony of society.
And this quote from the law really gets to the heart of the matter. We're not talking about just disagreeing with someone or hurting their feelings. The offense is about actively promoting enmity, hatred, or ill will between different groups of people, which is a direct threat to that public tranquility we started with.
And the law is designed to be really broad here, protecting all sorts of different groups. It's illegal to promote this kind of hatred based on someone's religion, race, where they were born, their language, caste, or community. The whole point is to protect the very fabric of a diverse society.
And where you say it, well, that context matters a lot. Committing one of these speech-based offenses inside a place of worship, a space that's supposed to be for peace, is seen as a huge aggravating factor. The maximum punishment jumps way up to 5 years in prison.
You know, when it comes to public disorder, the responsibility doesn't just end with the people who are actually in the crowd. The law casts a much wider net, and it can hold other people accountable for either helping these events happen or for not stopping them.
So, who else is on the hook? Well, first, people who actually hire others to join an unlawful assembly can be punished just like they were a member themselves. Second, anyone who knowingly harbors or shelters participants can face jail time. And third, even property owners can get fined if they know a riot is happening on their land and they just don't bother to report it.
This chart does a great job of laying out those different levels of who's on the hook. As you can see, the hirer faces the biggest penalty, same as a participant. The person harboring them faces a lesser but still serious sentence, and the landowner, down at the bottom, faces a fine. The message from the law is pretty clear. Preventing public disorder is a shared responsibility.
So, if there's one thing to take away, it's this. The law of public order is a very carefully built ladder. It all starts with the intent of a group of just 5 people. And with each step up that ladder, adding force, using weapons, promoting hatred, the crime and the consequences get much, much more severe. In the end, it all comes down to intent and action. So after all that, we're left with this huge critical question. These laws are all designed to keep the peace, but they have to exist in this very delicate balance with our fundamental rights like free speech and the right to assemble. So where do we as a society draw that line? Where does the right to protest end and the duty to protect public safety begin? That is the constant evolving challenge that's right at the heart of public order.